All right, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 7:03. And we're going to take agenda item 5 next, and we'll come back to meeting dates, minutes, and citizen speak if there's anyone here for that. I want to respect that Deborah asked to be, if they could be first on the agenda. So we will welcome the introduction that you'll provide us, Deborah, and status update.
All right. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for letting me go first. I'm on an extended family vacation and everybody is like gathered to eat. So I told them I'll be right there. All right. And really importantly, I am just so thrilled because this group has been talking about the shuttle environmental scan or information gathering project for many months. And I am so excited to say that after you all approved the project last month, which I'm so thrilled about, we found 2 fantastic, wonderful Northeastern graduate research assistants, graduate students, to be hired as the research assistants. And I really just wanted, after all of those many months of talking about it, I just wanted you to meet them and see how wonderful they are. Not to put you all on the spot. And so I'm hoping Megan jumps on. So I'm stalling a little bit. I'll say a couple of more things just to stall. Hopefully she'll jump on. Which is the other quick update, which is after you all approved the project, Cheryl and I met with Nick Milano, who approved the funding to go through the Partnership for Healthy Milton. And so the Partnership for Healthy Milton, the update is that the Partnership for Healthy Milton took a vote and we approved. That would be the plan. And so now we just have to work with the town to figure out how to make that happen operationally. And so that's the update on the partnerships, and that it was approved that the stipend will go through the partnership to pay the research assistants. So, Cheryl, do you want to add anything before we let Heather and Rachel introduce themselves?
Well, I think as we spoke at our last meeting, that there's going to be a small working group that works with you, Deborah, and that will include either Nick Connors or Nick Milano. And you had identified, I think, Alex Hasha and Lisa Courtney, right? And
yes,
one other, I think, Matt Moran.
And Matt Morong. So it's not official. This is just a group of folks in town who I approached and I said, and pick a sunsetting, would you be willing and interested in being part of an informal volunteer advisory committee, right? So as the project unfolds, that we have a go-to body, right, to review what we're doing and chime in and help draft the instrument and the questions and make sure we're on the right track. And so it's Cheryl has expressed interest, myself, Matt Morong's the newest, which I'm really excited about because he has transportation experience, and as Cheryl said, Alex Hasha, who sits on both Sustainable Milton and the Climate Action Committee, and he also has a lot of interest in the shuttle project. He coincidentally approached this body, I'm told, I wasn't there, around the same time that we did, asking whatever happened to the shuttle. So I am excited for it to be moving forward. So without further ado, so Heather Baran, why don't you go first, and then we'll introduce Rachel Schmidt. And if you could just introduce yourself, your experience, and then what you're studying in the program you're in.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Heather Barron, and I'm going into the second year of my urban planning and policy graduate program at Northeastern. And I guess overall, I've had experience interning at a civil engineering firm in their planning department. And then I've also just recently taken a transportation policy class. So going to bring that information into here, and really excited to hit the ground running.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm Rachel. I'm a public policy graduate student at Northeastern. and I have a concentration in sustainability and climate change resilience. I'm currently working in my home county's municipal utility authority with the environmental engineering department. I'm working on green stormwater infrastructure. And I'm just really excited to get the opportunity to work with everyone and try to help Milton make an informed decision.
Yay.
Great, thank you. Any committee members have any questions or comments?
Well, I would just say that like this is very exciting. Thank you so much for both being willing to do this, and for Deborah for initiating it and seeing it through. So yeah, it's really nice to meet you both.
And Deborah, question, in terms of the start date, has the, you want to go through that?
So to be really honest, I sent Nick Milano an email just asking what are the next steps, because we have to figure out, how the money, once the money gets transferred to partnership and partnership sort of figures out an invoicing, schedule and how we want to internally do that. So really at this point, it's just kind of operationalizing it to pull it off. So, but to be really honest, when Heather and I met recently, and Rachel and I, we actually haven't had a chance for the three of us yet to meet but I've met with them individually. We've already started brainstorming and thinking out loud and, oh, we should think about this and this. So it's kind of exciting. It's organically started, but officially, I really am waiting to hear from Nick Milano to understand the timing so we can just make a plan around it. But informally, I think some of the work has already started.
Okay, great. And do you have some sense of how long the work will be, the duration of the work?
I really have no idea. I'm not gonna lie. As everyone knows, we allocated 60 hours for each student. I think the data collection might sound like it will be shorter, but I have a feeling based on when Heather and I were chatting, like there's all of this new information that you find one thing and then it unearths this other. So, and then the interviews, I really do think will take 60 hours. I really do. But honestly, it's a crapshoot. And really, it just depends on Heather and Rachel and the advisory group, like how fast we're going, how slow. I really don't know. Maybe you all have a better sense. The interviews will definitely take a good chunk. The data mining, I don't know. What do you think, Cheryl?
Yeah, it's hard to predict because you don't know the schedules, how easy it will be to schedule to those interviews. That's my sense. But if you had, I don't know, Rachel and Heather, if you had any time really to think about the timing, but if you just had a sense of what your availability might be and what the tasks are, do you have a sense of just thinking in terms of when the information will be available? Deborah, it's nothing to hold anyone to, just trying to get an idea. Here comes Megan, so we can see if she has any other thoughts and questions. Hello, Megan. So we were just introduced to Heather and to Rachel, who are the two grad students who will be working on this project. And we were just talking about there's some logistics to getting it set up through the town, through Nick, in terms of the funds. And then I was asking if they had some sense of what they think the time frame it might take. Nothing that they're going to be held to, but so that's where we were. So
Great. Welcome.
So Heather and Rachel, we didn't do introductions, so let's do that because that's a mistake on my part. So I am Cheryl Tagayas, and I am the chair of the committee, and I am the representative from the planning board. And I'll ask Tabor to go next.
Tabor Keeley, I'm an appointed member. I was on the original master plan committee.
And Dick next.
I'm going to just follow Tabor. That's exactly, we're on the original committee and we've been on this for
I don't know, Ted, but 12 years now, I guess, from start to finish, thereabouts.
Yeah, so the three of us have that tenure. Then Elaine
Yeah. Lane Benson, appointed member.
and Regina
Regina Campbell Malone, appointed member.
and Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan Haggerty. I'm a member representing the select board, and I'm probably the newest member because I was just elected in April.
So, so Rachel and Heather, the master plan itself, as Deborah may have discussed with you, has a whole transportation section. And we've been over the years working on aspects of the recommendations, like, for example, a bicycle pedestrian master plan, implementing a complete streets program, trying to analyze one of the most vexing problems, I guess, in Milton, which is traffic considerations and, are there things that can be done to mitigate some of the impacts people feel? And then part of that, really is, can we have less trips necessary from people who live in Milton? So that's some of where this shuttle analysis comes from, out of the thought that maybe it would be beneficial for all of us to have another mode of transportation to get about town, for all different age groups and demographics and parts of town. So Megan, I don't know if you wanted to ask any questions or make any comments.
No, I think this is like a really exciting project to scope out what it would take to analyze demand or need and give some insights into how other towns who've adopted a similar service, what the roadmap is basically to do that. Basically the assessment of all of the steps and things that the town would need to consider to have this as a potential solution. But yeah, and it's exciting. It's exciting to be able to work with you all.
So Heather and Rachel, do you have any questions for us?
Not yet, but it sounds really great, and I'm so glad to meet everybody as well, to hear more about it.
Great.
Yeah, I didn't have any questions, just really appreciate being able to like get some names to faces and get to know everybody.
So if you have opportunity to begin your work before our committee sunsets at the end of October, you're through Deborah, welcome to come back and provide us with any updates or ask us any questions. And we would welcome that if you'd like to do that. So
Thank you. So the three of us are starting our semester. I think classes begin September 3rd anyway for the undergrad. Does it the same for the graduate? September 3rd anyway. So the evening meetings might be tricky for them because they take evening classes in the graduate program. So, but we will see what happens and we'll circle back. And I would like to come back with an update before you sunset for sure. My intent is to come both September and October. I assume you'll have one last meeting in October, right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'll definitely come back, and then if these guys can, great, but if not, I can represent, so.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for taking time for your family on vacation,
you.
Deborah, and
Thank
thank you, Heather and Rachel, for coming. It's great to meet you, and we look forward to your work.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for coming, Heather and Rachel, I appreciate it. Okay,
Thanks.
bye.
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 Okay. We're going to go now back to next meeting dates. We have September 10th, but I'm thinking we're going to it would be good to schedule another working session like we had that Dick and Regina and I were able to, I think, make some progress discussing what's in the content. And so I was thinking that if we could look at our calendars and see if what folks think, either the last week of August or the first week of September.
Last week of August works best for me.
Okay. And how about others?
I can make that work. That's my first week of opening meetings for school, but we can make it work.
Okay.
I
Or I
prefer
can do
last
the
week of
first week of
August.
August. Okay, sorry.
I'm sorry, Tabor?
I'd prefer last week of August over first week of September, but
Okay.
I'm sure I could make one or the other work.
Okay, then Dick?
The first week of September won't work for me, but the last week in August would work.
Okay, and then Elaine?
Most likely last week, yep.
All right, so it sounds like the last week of August is it. So
Tuesday, the 26th, there's a select board meeting.
all right, and the 28th, there's a planning board, and then I have a other commitment on the 27th. Does the 25th work for folks?
Right now, yes.
Okay, so let's plan on the 25th as a working session.
In person?
We can do
Or remote.
hybrid, yeah. We just need enough time in advance to get a room. If we schedule sometimes that close to the meeting time it's not possible to get a room, but I will see that we can get a room for the 25th. Meeting minutes, I will defer because I'm going to need to watch the tape and generate the minutes for that. One of the things I was looking back to, and I don't think that even though we took votes in our meetings to approve the minutes, I don't actually think they're recorded in the minutes as having been approved. So I think we're going to have to do a bulk. I want to check into that. We may have to do a bulk reapproval of the minutes because I was noticing that the minutes aren't posted on the website since January. So I had asked Nick about following up with that. So I'll see what we need to do there. So we'll have that on our agenda for the 10th. I don't see anyone. Okay. I see, is that Nick there with your hand up?
Yes, Cheryl, just so you know, the minutes were not saved in Cheyenne's files in any central location.
Okay.
So if you think you were the last one to edit them, then I can pull them from her emails accordingly. But they are not in one central location in her OneDrive.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we'll
Cheryl,
need
we
to
could
do
also have the Zoom, there should be Zoom files that could be transcripts associated with that should be in her Zoom or
Yeah.
whoever was recording the Zooms.
I actually have all the minutes, Regina.
Oh, got it.
Except for not the working session and then the prior meeting, but
Got it, okay.
I did ask her to send me a link to the recording for that, so I can do that. But we do have the other ones because Cheyenne had sent me the minutes and I had reviewed them before distributing them to the committee. So, so Nick, if you want to do that, otherwise I can just pull them together and send them all to you. I have them saved separately.
Okay, that works. And then we can post them to the website pretty much the same day. That's like a 2-button thing, so that's easy.
So while you're here, like I said, I noticed that we didn't actually record the vote of approving the minutes in the couple that I checked. So I think we have to reapprove them. Is that what you would think too?
Yeah, that'd probably be cleanest procedurally.
Okay. So what we'll do is, they won't have changed all from what we voted before, but I'll read, when I send them to, Nick, can you just redistribute them to everyone?
Sure.
And that would be back since February, right? Or does it go further than that?
No, I'll just double check what's on the website and then let
Okay.
you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so we don't need, I don't see anyone else on for citizen speak. Okay, before we do the 10-year draft report, I circulated, a potential draft article. And this was for our discussion. We have, Nick had asked me if we're going to have an article for the fall town meeting because there would be nothing on the agenda under which our report would fall if we didn't have an article, at least an article looking for or calling for a report of our committee. And so, in thinking about the report and as I've been working on the report, and how we've talked about some things just haven't progressed and some things, recommendations are made and they haven't been followed up on. I began to think, is our recommendations going to follow that same path? Are we going to be in a place where the master plan kind of gets left off and dropped off where we end? And so one way to kind of keep the momentum going is to have a reconstituted committee. And it wouldn't have to be members who are currently on the committee, although I do think, the possibility of having some continuity between at least a couple of members who are familiar with what's in the master plan and the progress and lack of progress and where our recommendations are going to fall, could potentially serve on the committee. So that's kind of where this came from. And it's kind of thrown out kind of last minute because the warrant is closing for it's tomorrow, Nick, or this week, is that right? That the warrant's closing?
Yes, that we want all the articles in by this week, although I'll note that the select board's next meeting is not until August 26th this time.
Okay. So I don't know that it would need 2 years to do this. We have the funding available to hire a consultant to help with things that we think we would want help with. And, that could be technical or it could be community engagement. And then the committee that Tabor and Dick and I served on was a pretty large committee. And that was because the plan hadn't been updated for 40 some years, I think it was. We've talked about targeted updates with sort of some particular things that haven't had attention. So there might be some more focus on this composition of the board that could help focus on that. And then there's been no other committee that has a joint appointment where there's the same people have to be voted in by two different bodies. So this I did speak to Nick about, was there another or better way to do it? And we discussed and came up with this, what you see, 3 members by the planning board, 3 by the select board, and 3 by the moderator. So I kind of throw it out for discussion. So I see Tabor has his hand raised.
At one point, we had talked about not redoing the master plan from scratch, but updating it.
Right.
And I think at that time, there was something from the town of Dedham about a updated master plan committee, and this is going back 3 or 4 years that they had it. But a 50 or 60 page report on what the town of Dedham was planning on doing. And to be honest, I didn't read the whole thing, but it just seemed, I'm wondering if that makes more sense to do it as not as an ongoing committee, but as a new committee whether or not any, transfers from this committee go over, but it's a master plan. Because, 10 years old, there's a lot of stuff that has been completed, and that's what, our report's all about. But I think that it seems that it deserves a little bit of attention, but probably not the attention of a full 40-year reconstitution of a brand new master plan.
Right. I think we've talked for some time now about how our recommendations would be for a targeted update, right? Not a full update. For cost is one of the reasons. I think we all remember that the cost is pretty significant. And that there are things that are just an ongoing sort of kind of fulfillment by town departments, and others are more targeted, like particular zoning updates or housing initiatives, et cetera. Those either someone takes the lead on or they don't. But some parts are, I think we found that are really just kind of a department's responsibility. And I think we could, the report itself has been challenging to get pulled together. There's the documents themselves are, the spreadsheet, has a lot of information. The master plan itself is filled with information. And I think it's been a little bit of a challenge to wrap our heads around some specific recommendations, but I'm hoping we can still get there in the time that we have left. But really, advancing any of those recommendations is going to take some additional effort for sure. Others?
Cheryl, you talked about this being a transition from, originally this was supposed to sunset after 10 years. And I think that's what most master plans are designed to do. And I think this would be a perfect time for us to wrap up our work and turn it over to another committee, new members, maybe some of the same members, but some new members to interject some of their thoughts into this new plan. I'm also a little concerned about adding members at this point. If it's only going on for a couple of years, why are we adding members now?
Yeah, so it is kind of a reconstitution, Dick, so that we actually see that a new committee is formed rather than just leaving our report into, handing it over and not seeing a new committee formed. And then as far as adding members, it was thinking that we're 6 now, 7 by, I guess by charge, we're allowed 7. So going to 9 was just thinking that what we don't have currently is anyone with like Parks and Rec, historic preservation, which are parts of the actual plan itself that we, when I was looking at what we had it previously for expertise, I did add historic preservation, housing, Parks and Rec, and engineering to what the list was, thinking that that encompasses all of the topics in the plan itself, but not getting as big as it was, in 2012, 2013, 14, when we were on that committee, because we're not going to be as extensive, or we don't recommend as an extensive an update.
We're talking about this being an implementation committee, aren't we? We're not a master plan committee. Is that what you're proposing?
I'm suggesting that this committee actually just expand its charge to develop the recommendations that we're going to suggest in a broad sense still need.
So we'd be an implementation committee, right?
Mhm.
Is that what it is? So we're expanding the number of members and the term on an implementation committee that was supposed to. We've been talking about sunsetting this for a while on, I think, at the town meeting in October.
It's actually change in charge a bit to actually develop those recommendations for the select board and the planning board. That's what I'm suggesting.
What recommendations are you talking about?
Well, what we've discussed, some have to do with really continuing to work on the things that weren't, a lot of progress hasn't been made on, such as economic development, such as we talked about the plan not really being as comprehensive or detailed on sustainability and climate change as it might be warranted today. How we talked about how aspects of inclusion, diversity, etc., weren't weaved through and addressed. There's some comment on it in the plan, but the recommendations are fairly vague, just like they were in the sustainability. And so that's part of what we still have to discuss here in our, even in our report. We were saying that our report was going to include targeted recommendations. I think we haven't listed those. We've talked about them in generalities like I am now. But we still need to list them.
Well, right, but I'm thinking, wouldn't those, all those issues, as worthy as they are, wouldn't they be perfect for a new committee to kind of interject them into a new master plan?
It's so
That's-
funny that you say that, Dick, because when I saw this draft article, all I thought was, this is brilliant. This is going to address what Dick has been saying all along, about our report getting put on a shelf, and instead, by changing the charge of this committee, we honor this idea that Dick had, that we can actually move beyond having that turned in and put on a shelf and begin the process already of implementing the recommendations that we put out. And so I actually was like, yes, Dick's gonna love this, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, yes and no, but I think that what I'm thinking about is this would be a perfect time to start a new committee, and that's the whole idea behind a master plan. And that's what there usually is, a beginning and end to it, to have other people weigh in on some of their thoughts, to interject some of the items that Cheryl has mentioned as worthy as they are into a new master plan, and maybe take out some of the things in the old master plan that really hasn't percolated to the top of interest today as it was in 2000 and was it 13 when we started this thing. So I'm just wondering, I think at some point things have to end. And I think this would be a perfect time to end, make our report, start a new committee, new members, new charge. We can 9, I would say 11 members. I would say have a member from every precinct in this town to weigh in on something like this, and put together another agenda where we actually can put together something that we actually can get some things done. There's too many. We're going to talk about something later on that I think I saw then on Cheryl's agenda of a committee that I spent over a year and a half on, that sat on the shelf. And I think that that's what I am concerned about, just stretching this thing out where we can start something new and get more people, new ideas involved in this process, if it's legitimate.
I'm
Megan?
gonna jump in. So I agree with Dick, and I agree with everyone, and I'm confused. Like, are we saying different things? So I think we're sunsetting the committee and filing the report, but also that the article is saying we need a new committee and we need new work, not work that is necessarily like as expansive or this as global in scope as the last master plan was, but that we would target some select areas like economic development, transportation, etc., that maybe we didn't get to really go for as much as we would want to, or maybe there have been environmental changes like post-COVID, etc. Like in some ways we live in like a different world than we did at the start of the master plan. So I don't know, Dick and Cheryl, if I have that wrong or what.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I guess
that was like my takeaway from it.
I was thinking that it is a new committee, but that there would be a continuity across so that you wouldn't lose momentum, that you wouldn't lose institutional knowledge, that you could keep you would invigorate with new people with some different expertise for sure. And I don't know who on the committee, would want to, stay on, if anyone. But we would leave this with a new committee in sort of framework in place. We don't have to have the people, but we would be saying that we believe that this framework should be in place, and we could call it a different name if we want. We don't have to call it an implementation committee. But the idea is that we're recommending and we are submitting that this should be something that's put in place, and that it's something that the planning board and the select board both have a lot of responsibility for, but there are other bodies too, which is why the moderator would appoint people as well. And so these are the appointing bodies typically for committees. And so it's setting up the framework for how this committee would work. It's the idea that you would give a little bit of that continuity through it being an extension. Or
But you could have the continuity, Cheryl, if some of the members on this committee decided to be willing to serve on this new committee, wouldn't that? What's the
yeah, but
difference?
there's no new committee if we don't put one forward. And this would be a town meeting.
Well, this isn't a new committee. You're just extending the term and expanding the members. It's not a new committee. It's the same committee with an additional 2 years of longevity and adding what? The moderator would appoint 3 people as opposed to the select board and the planning board, right?
But none of us are required to stay on, Dick. So essentially, we could have as much turnover.
But Regina, you can stay on if you want. If you were interested, you certainly could stay on. You could ask.
Hold on.
appoint it.
Wait.
What?
Are you proposing that I have a choice in whether I would stay on when there was an hour-and-a-half long fight on a public meeting to have me appointed in the first place? Is that what you're implying, that it's just easy for me to stay?
I could say that you could apply to and talk to the planning board like I could apply, like everyone on this call could apply. And it's not easy, but you do have to apply. It's like winning the lottery. You have to buy a ticket, don't you?
All right, so I'm going to move this to Elaine has her hand raised.
Hi. Yeah, I think what kind of struck me a little bit with your comment, Dick, was saying that like things have to end. I think the way I see it, things could potentially evolve. There's a tremendous amount of experience and, to your point, Cheryl, institutional knowledge on this committee. I mean, I haven't been on it nearly as long, but I think 3 of you have served since its inception. And I think that really speaks to the commitment and the insight that all of you bring. Certainly not volunteering you to stay on any version of this committee if it moves forward, but I think as we consider forming a new committee, like that kind of continuity can be really valuable. And I think, as we assess the current master plan and maybe identify priorities for our next one, I do think that adds value rather than starting with a complete new committee. But one thing that I keep kind of circling back to is, and I think I know the answer, but I'm just throwing it out there for maybe something that we could discuss as a committee, is like, do we think that the town and the various committees in town really use the master plan as a tool to guide their work? I think they do, but I think if it's not helping to actively inform decisions, then maybe it's not worth continuing, or maybe it's worth taking a pause and revisiting it later. But I'm just genuinely curious what other people think.
So one thing, on the planning board, we have had applicants who reference the master plan and they're asked to, how does your project, fit into the master plan? So, so that they are directed to look at it there. And then, certainly people have looked at it when they feel as if something is inconsistent with the plan, and they reference that in comments. One of the things that I think we all discovered early on when looking at the very detailed recommendations, or like 120 some, I think it was, in our spreadsheet, is that not all the departments were as familiar with it as others, right? Like, so Parks and Rec, or maybe the health department. I think over time that changed. But Nick, if you're still on, I know that having a master plan does make the town available for certain grants. And I don't know if there's anything you would want to add about the value of a master plan and those grants.
I personally have not seen an issue where not having a master plan has impacted a grant application. So you may know more about that than I do.
Okay.
So I'm the wrong person to ask on that one.
And what about in terms of like that a lot of the plan does have responsible parties as town departments. Would you say that you and the department heads reference or refer to the plan itself in decision making?
Yeah, and I think that's something, that really Tim was good about, and reminding department heads. And I think just to restate my grant comment is when we're able to point to a master plan and narratives for grants, that's helpful. So rather than being like a precursor prerequisite, it's more about it makes a more convincing narrative. So I just to address that prior question a little bit clearer.
Yeah, it does seem like it's also a good point, Cheryl, because it does seem like just in Google search, and I have to fact check this, but that it could boost your like kind of competitiveness in terms of like your score through certain grant programs.
Right. I mean, that's my understanding from both Tim and his predecessor, Bill Clark, was that it did help with grants, but I don't have the specifics front of mind. So thanks for doing the quick Google check, Elaine. I think it also helps like MAPC, we get matching grants. And, they like to see like their matching funds go to things that lead to something. So for example, the Milton Village zoning and the East Milton Square zoning that they were recommended in our master plan. And then the planning board and others like us looked at them and that they actually were adopted by town meeting. That would, if you were going into, hello there, if you were starting with zoning first, like where did it come from? Right? Like what framework does this doing an overlay come from? And the framework comes from the plan itself, right? So it's just like, it should be a guide. That's my understanding of the master plan. It is a guide for other endeavors. And if a community has said in their master plan that they want to, let's just say, address senior housing as a particular topic, then what initiatives could they take to address that? And so then if someone comes into the if we set up the framework, then we're able to attract someone who's willing to do senior housing, right? So it's kind of, you set out the goal, you set up you can move on the framework and then you achieve it. There's so many pieces to it, that some of that, to me, like on the public facilities side of it, it's not that broad where other entities have as much of a role, but certainly on some of the, on the zoning and the housing, it does require these other bodies. Tabor?
I raised my hand for committee comment, but on as far as the master plan is concerned, it certainly, Cheryl, you would be the best for this. Both opponents and proponents of certain plans use the master plan as a weapon or a cudgel to make things happen or to rebut things. But warrant committee, I've heard them use this too. It certainly, I'm sure there are plenty of committees that don't have full knowledge of it, but I think it's been widely used in the last since pandemic. I've heard it a lot.
And Tabor, with respect to MAPC, who works on a lot of master plans, do you have any?
So that was my next point, that the MAPC tells everybody that the master plan is required if you're going to be getting state grants. Now, whether or not that's true, I don't know, but that's what I've certainly heard that from MAPC for many, many years, and that's part of the method that MAPC uses to get towns to use them to update and or start new master plans. And I guess that's, part of preserving their own business. But that, the master plan certainly is now widely understood across town. And when we went to put this thing together 15 years ago, there are a lot of people in town that have never heard of a master plan before. So, you know, that education level has changed dramatically.
Right, that's right.
So my point for raising my hand in the beginning was just to say that this proposed or article language here, it still calls it the Master Plan Implementation Committee, and it's just extending the existing committee term, and it's adding members, but it still is a Master Plan Implementation Committee. And if we had some idea that we would like to leave a legacy of something else, this would probably be the spot to start it and say, now that the MPIC is done, now we need to move on to, you know, the XYZ committee, whatever that is, and describe that purpose, et cetera. But here, this article doesn't really propose to change the purpose of the committee as much as it's just expanding it and extending it. And at least that's the way I read it.
Well, some of it could be, I mean, it could be called a reconstituted committee with a different name. You know, part of it really still is recommendations, more detailed recommendations that would need to be accepted by the planning board and the select board, and therefore then called an updated master plan. The committee itself wouldn't be the ones who would say, this is the updated master plan. So in that sense, it's still advisory, or just as the original master plan committee was, until the planning board adopted it, it was just the recommendations of that committee. So if it's just, I mean, if it's a matter of the term implementation, I think it's really just an effort to see that the recommendations don't just sit, that the work just sits. And that this is, if we want to call it a different, something else, and instead of saying amend the term, we could say, you know, a new committee with a term of 2 years, you know, and then members of this committee could apply or not. That's okay too. This was just, I thought maybe, I mean, it was put together pretty quickly and I consulted with Nick about it, but it was just, I was reflecting on how even difficult it is for us to come to an agreement on what the recommendations are. And we've been working on this for years. So what's the new committee going to come in and do? I mean, I'm just trying to see progress, you know, trying to set up a framework for progress. Regina, your hand's up?
I'm with you on that, Cheryl. I think, but I do see, and I didn't see it before, so Tabor, thank you for that, that the Master Plan Implementation Committee could be reconstituted as the Master Plan Implementation and Update Committee that would be charged with, during a certain term, checking on the progress of the committee, and during another term, actually reorganizing and updating the committee, and updating the plan as requested by the planning board and select board. And I think having a more standing committee like that would allow for continuity, and yet have people be able to rotate on and off, just like the warrant committee, just like other committees. And it might make sense to run this past the select board in at the next meeting. I know we'd have to submit it for it to appear on the warrant before that, but to run it past the select board and maybe get a green sheet with some language from both the select board and maybe even the planning board around how to make for an efficient transfer of the knowledge base that we have of the master plan, and bring in new blood on a more regular basis to do both of those accomplish both of those charges, making sure that things get implemented and making sure that the plan gets updated with some of the more timely information.
Megan?
So I think I'm saying something similar to what Regina was just saying. maybe we can think of this as sort of an interim team to wrap up some of the areas that we couldn't get to, but to plan and scope for the next iteration of the master plan with some particular focus on the areas that didn't completely get fulfilled.
So,
I don't know if that's problematic or
so
what,
the, all right, so see if we can kind of summarize it. I'm hearing that there's general support for having some way to set up a framework so that this doesn't just get dropped. Is that true?
yeah, it's like we want a deliverable, but we also don't want this to just get dropped
Right.
because there are some loose ends to tie up, but a bigger planning effort, is separate and requires some scoping.
So, would we want to so Nick, help me with this. Could we have this be, instead of amending this charge, that we make a recommendation? Well, I mean, it could be that a recommendation that the committee transition into an update committee and then this charge and this composition? Or that
Yeah, I
this
think
committee
you would,
can-
yeah, I agree. I think you would keep the first sentence to the first semicolon and to see if the town will vote to establish XYZ committee with this kind of charge, this composition to last this long. So
Right,
a
so.
tweak along those lines.
So maybe
Well-
Cheryl, maybe instead of just the 3 members appointed by planning board, 3 members appointed by the select board, 3 members appointed by the town moderator, and members rolled in from the previous MPIC.
What is the problem in having a new master plan committee?
That's what this is.
No,
No, I think this
it
is the
is
time
not.
that it's going to take to establish it, Dick. I think
Well,
that's
I'm looking at it now. We're going from 11 to 13 years, and we're expanding the number of members. What is the problem with us submitting a report? Right, we've decided what we wanted to work on through all these years, and we didn't hit everything. There was a lot of things in that master plan that we didn't touch.
Mhm.
We finished up. This is our report. We put it in. They put together a new master plan starting forward. They could certainly decide to appoint members from the MPIC onto that committee for transition purposes. But I don't think there's a lot of new people in this town that haven't had an opportunity to weigh in on this plan. And I think every 10 years, unless someone can give me something different, we're supposed to go back and take a look at a new master plan. I heard what people were saying. I was never insinuating to do away with the master plan. All right. I think we need a master plan. It's just a question of this transition period is causing me a little problem.
So can I just go back to, Nick, can you repeat what you said? I'm just typing it in here just so we have it as an option to establish.
I think from there, it's whatever the committee's name would be. And then you'd want to lay out the charge composition and the term of it from there. Almost how you do it with like bullets down below.
Okay.
So Dick, I think the thing I'm
Like that.
seeing is the value of kind of pushing forward and starting the next master plan update committee without waiting for others to begin that charge. And I don't see that as a negative if it starts the process 6 months earlier than it might otherwise get on the docket. And I also see the value in having some overlap between the folks currently on the MPIC and those who will do the bulk of the work in the long term,
Well, you can have those.
creating a new master plan.
Regina, you could have those. You could be appointed by the planning board as one of the members of the impact. If you were interested. I mean, there's no reason people on this committee could not be part of this new master plan committee.
Well, but when would that happen? And I remember that being one of your concerns too, that this was going to be put on the shelf and not addressed. So this was sort of a way, at least when I read it, I saw it as a way of making sure that there was some continuity and continued movement in that in a forward direction without waiting for the other committees to come to some agreement that that this is important.
I don't see any guarantee there wouldn't be put on the shelf even after 2 years. If we're talking about economic development, talking about traffic and circulation, those are big issues, and we really haven't spent a lot of time on them. So we're going to say we're going to do that now. We're going to put together another report in 2 years. I'm thinking that's how it works. And then what's the guarantee that it isn't going to sit on the shelf?
I mean, I guess because we'd be meeting we would know someone would be meeting monthly to discuss it and push forward with it and ask the questions of the departments, of what's going on with it. That's all. Whereas if we just turn in our report and walk away, I don't see any guarantee that even for the next 6 months, anyone's going to be asking those questions and having those discussions.
But we're doing that now.
All right, so let's let Elaine jump in here. She has her hand up.
No, I mean, I was just gonna say that I completely understand the desire to open it up to new voices. I think it's probably a good problem to have if so many people want to get involved. I think though, I'm still learning. I think I've been on this committee now close to 3 years, and I feel like I'm still getting caught up. So if we're just talking about a 2-year time frame and we were to completely start with a new committee, I just don't know that how you could hit the ground running, without having some sort of existing knowledge from some folks who've been on this for close to 10 years. I think you kind of do being able to expand the committee from 10 to 13 creates space, I think, to honor both. You can have some experience from a few past members and you can bring in some fresh perspective. So that would be my vote, but we appreciate everyone's input.
Okay, so let's I think we've kind of discussed the pros and cons or the different ways this could go. I kind of put in red what might be a separate committee as something different. So let's just kind of get, Elaine, you just kind of gave a summary where you think you would like this to go. Do you think that this, whether it's the way this was originally set up as an extension of the committee, do you see a difference between setting up a committee with the framework or the change that I made here versus what I sent to initially? Do you see, would it make a difference? Is it a difference? Or is it just a matter of, see, my concern, I guess, is I want to put forth an article that says, or I'm recommending, this is my personal opinion, that we should have an article that establishes that either that a reconstituted committee takes this forward or a new committee takes this forward. I feel concerned that it won't move forward and it'll die out a bit if we don't have some kind of framework that we recommend, because we recommend that actions need to be taken. And if, Dick, that in the traffic mitigation committee, there was a report with many recommendations, and you told us at the last meeting, none of them have been implemented. And, it's somebody paying attention to it is how things get implemented. And I think that's how things some progress has been made, is we have been paying attention to it as a committee. And I'm concerned that momentum will be lost without, whether it's how this is phrased is the way to do it, but I get the sense that the majority of us think that putting forth some committee is the right thing to take this. And so let's just get it, whether we have consensus on that. I think I saw some hands before. So we can talk about this particular language. So let's just say, Tabor, are you in favor of an article that establishes a committee or a reconstituted committee or a new committee?
I am in favor of sunsetting the MPIC part and then establishing the master plan update committee, and that would be a slightly different charge. I think we need to take the master plan of 2015 and offload a number of items that were on there, things that have, whether they were accomplished to everybody's satisfaction or not, they were addressed. And as Dick said, there are a couple of things here that, we haven't gotten to, and whether it's traffic or you'll never finish traffic, but economic development and other things, those are important. And we spent a lot of time doing a lot of minutia, but we just haven't had enough time to finish it all. The next committee, I think, is updating this master plan, would then address those particular items. And I'm sure if we add three new members to this group, we're probably going to come up with a whole host of things that we haven't even thought of. Because that was, 10 years ago, and by the time we're done with it, it'll be 15 years ago. So it just seems like it's a natural progression to do an updating of the old master plan, and then maybe 2-3 years from now, that has to be implemented. But I don't think that's a bad thing.
Okay, Elaine, you just spoke, but what's your thoughts relative to, or what's your recommendation? What would you support?
I agree with Tabor. I think that makes a lot of sense.
All right, Regina?
I completely understand, and if that's the direction that we want to go, I agree with that as a possible direction. If that's how we go, I'd like to see some language in here that would allow for sort of potentially a back and forth where you establish a committee and then that committee is charged with, when they sunset, establishing the next committee, right? I think it would be great to try and establish a sequence that would allow this to continue almost in perpetuity, as long as it's working, so that it forces continued action.
Yeah, so another implementation committee,
Right,
basically.
and that at the sunset of the implementation committee, they will, the next committee for an update would be created, right? And not necessarily by the MPIC, but the sunset of the one committee forces the creation of the next committee then.
So that could be in the report, right?
Yeah.
So, okay. Megan?
Sorry, I was responding to something. What was, are we?
So, I guess what I'd like to do is get everyone's point of view on the submission of an article establishing either a reconstituted committee or a new committee with master plan update committee.
I think we should have a new committee. And this, any of the same people could be reappointed to it. But we can have a modified charge.
So, I put it, everybody see my screen? So a new name, I mean, this obviously would be, this would be removed, right? I'll just, this would be removed. I mean, this would need to get cleaned up, obviously, but, so this, these, the recommended targeted updates do need to follow the master plan regulations. So I would say, you know, it would be this and in front of this. And then again, it's reporting and submitting to the planning board and select board. And then, instead of amending, this would just be the composition, right?
I think Regina had a good point, though, that in some ways that this is not the purpose of this committee, the master plan committee never ends. And maybe you just call it the master plan committee and there's an 8-year implementation phase and a 2-year update phase. And you go back, you know, it's constantly going back over what you've accomplished, et cetera. But
Okay.
I don't know, maybe that just makes more sense.
Yeah, and I would even say adding language like within, I don't know, within 180 days, the select board will appoint 3 members to the whatever the next committee is, and within 180 days, the planning board will commit, right? So that
Yep.
you put in some guidance around when that stuff needs to happen.
I agree.
Okay, so I don't know if I can do that on the fly here. Nick, is this something that you think that you could take a stab at?
Yeah, just based on this discussion and if we can connect maybe tomorrow, Wednesday to
Yeah. So,
talk it through a bit.
yeah. So I think procedurally, we can have a vote to submit an article based on that discussion. And, so that, Nick, I know you don't, and, Megan, you and the select board don't love having something which is not sort of put pen to paper to receive it, but, you know, we could call a meeting, just to approve the, you know, final language. Just for that purpose only, you know, to make it a quick meeting during the day, whatever worked for anyone, just to meet the deadlines that, you know, you have established. So so I guess I would, Dick, you, I don't think I called on you as a last.
No, but I also
person.
think that I'm looking at number 1 here, extending the term of the committee from 11 to 13 years. Because this committee is in fact going away, the implementation committee. We're not extending it. And I
Yeah.
don't know if it's a 2-year term or not. I don't know if it's a 5-year term for something along these lines. But I think we're talking about reconstituting and putting together a new updated master plan. As these things are supposed to be living documents, and that's what it is. There's going to be some things in this master plan we all know that really are not going to be quite as pertinent or interesting to people today as they were 13 years ago. So I think that we have to give this thing an opportunity to take into some considerations some of the new issues that are going to be raised by people in the town that are important to them.
So what it sounds like though is people are supporting a master plan committee that its charge is both updating the plan, but also continuing to manage the implementation or continuing to monitor the implementation. So it's really an update and implementation, or so you could just call it a master plan committee that has those dual charges. Is that what I'm understanding?
That's what I thought of. Yeah.
Okay, so I see yes from Regina, yes from Tabor, yes from Megan. Elaine?
Yep.
And then Dick?
What's the yes? Are we looking, am I looking at these?
No, we're gonna rewrite it based
Well,
on just
then I
talking
don't know
about.
what I'm saying yes to then, if we're gonna rewrite it. Now, what's gonna change here that,
All right, so this is going to become a master plan committee,
right?
but the charge of that committee is still going to be monitoring the implementation. And an additional charge is going to be to make recommendations on updates, and you know, updates could be new things and it also could be deletions. So
And we're gonna take away the extended term of the committee from 11 to 13 years, right?
correct, there's going to be some other
Okay,
adding a term. I mean, this is probably needs to be more than two now, right? So this
Right.
needs to be something like, it just, disregard some of what has to change. I'm just trying to put in in red what we wanted to kind of say. And then Nick and I will work on it. So I don't know, what do we think the term wants to be?
Do you need a term? I mean, it seems like the need is perpetual.
right.
Okay, so, but then we do need, well, Nick, do we need a term or just the members need a term?
The members should have a term, yes. The term of the committee, we've seen it both ways, where sometimes the town meeting or a board or committee will establish it for a certain amount of time. The school building committee, as an example, doesn't have a term of how long it will last. That's, I think, the most recent town meeting chartered committee, other than MPIC. So that's the first that comes to mind. So that's really up to the recommendation. Obviously, town meeting may put a charge on it. The warrant committee could recommend a charge, but what this body recommends doesn't need to have one.
So I guess we need to have what the current charge is of the committee here, right? So we don't have to have a term. But what we need to have here is,
Or maybe Cheryl, it would say current term blank, proposed term unlimited or in perpetuity or something like that.
sorry, say that, I just was putting this in.
So maybe instead of changing it, so maybe do with the term like you're planning on doing with the existing charge versus the proposed charge, that you have current term of the MPIC, and then proposed term of the master plan committee in perpetuity or perpetual or unlimited or what, I don't know how the other ones are written,
So you would say something like here,
or standing committee or something like that, yeah. That it would be the, like you'd have a current state of the MPIC. It was a term scheduled to be for X amount of years, extended that had been expended for 2, and then the current term, the proposed term for the master plan committee would be a standing committee or perpetual or committee in perpetuity. I don't know how they're written.
so sunset the current MPIC and commence the new committee upon the vote of town meeting? Something like that. And
Yeah.
then as far as the charge of the committee, it would need to have, in order to still be implementation, it would still need to have the existing MPIC charge, right? And
Mhm.
then add to it the recommendations, right?
Cheryl, what if, so we are the only ones that really know what the details of what the MPIC does. What if we as the MPIC propose the creation of this new committee, period, not at all as an add-on of the current committee, but as a brand new committee? I
Yeah,
don't know
so
how committees are
that's-
formed in
that's kind
town.
of, I think that's what we're doing here now, Regina.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So we're going to report out on the
Mm-hmm.
committee's work, and then we're going to recommend that this new committee be established by town meeting. And that new committee's charge will be the same as the
Twofold.
implementation committee, but it's
Plus.
also going to be
Got it. Okay, I got it.
to act, on the recommendations.
Got it.
And we can maybe add something in here about being a continuous process. I don't know how to phrase that exactly, but Megan, I see your hands up.
Yes, I agree on the language about this being a continuous process, right? So it's monitoring implementation, it's It's also, I think, planning and scoping for successive plans. Um, and then on the composition of the committee, I would put an area of expertise that is missing is transportation.
Okay. Okay.
I'm jumping back in again. Do we have any examples of similar committees and committee charges from other towns?
Well, a couple years ago, MAPC reached out to us and said they were using us as an example for other
Okay.
towns to use. So,
Cool.
but we can ask Tabor, I don't know if you want to ask or if you want me to ask.
I could ask, but I mean, geez, Milton has like 50 committees. There must be something in there that works for us, I would think. And then at least we could say we're patterning it on something of Milton's and not of, the town of Saugus or
Okay.
whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Also-
Megan, you were referring to like a master plan committee, right?
Yeah, or just like, yeah, just if there were an existing template, I mean, it's fine being, innovative. But yeah, I just wasn't sure if other towns had a similar committee with a similar charge.
Coincidentally, I have a meeting tomorrow with MAPC about things in general, but I can certainly specify this one question and see if I can get and run that up the flagpole. I'm sure somebody may have an input.
Yeah, and I have a contact with the town of Dedham who has a master plan committee, and I'll talk to my friend tomorrow about this and see what she has to say about how they're approaching this whole their master plan and implementation committee situation.
Okay. All right, so Nick, do we need a vote to submit an article tonight or in order to meet the August 7th deadline? That's based on this plus the notes, the comments that I put in. Did we lose Nick? All right, maybe he stepped away.
I did. I had heard the question. I heard you ask the question, but I didn't hear the question.
Okay, do we need a vote tonight since the deadline is August 7th and the vote could be based upon the discussion and a draft which will be circulated for review and approval prior to a final submission or something like that?
Yeah, I think subject to somebody's discretion, whoever that would be, would presumably the chair, but as long as somebody has the final kind of go ahead until a follow-up meeting MPEC is scheduled.
Okay, so does that make sense for everyone?
And so
Mhm.
that means the final language probably would be on a green sheet.
No, because I don't think we have to have the final language just yet. We just have to have
Okay.
something for, I'm calling it placeholder now because that's what the planning board has done. And I know that it's not, select board doesn't love placeholder, but Nick and I will work on this language update and we'll get something scheduled to review it and finalize it.
You got it. Sounds good.
But so I need a motion though. And I guess the motion could be to submit an article for the October town meeting which which allows us to make the report of the committee and to establish a master plan committee with a charge that includes both the existing master plan implementation committee charge and of monitoring, implementation, scoping, planning and scoping of successive plans and continuous efforts of the master plan work, and with adding expertise that would include transportation.
And we're gonna update this committee will be updating the master plan?
Correct.
Okay, I didn't hear that, but I think that's important.
Yeah, well, it's meant to be based on what you received plus the changes. So maybe there's a better motion than what I did. Anyone else want to take a crack at it?
I think you said pretty well. I mean, I'm sure it could be cleaned up, but as long as it allows us to redo the master plan and implement it and operates on a permanent basis rather than a 10-year charge, which is the previous.
Okay, Tabor has a good motion there. All right, so I think what it would be is, again, so if somebody would make the motion to submit the article, which would allow us to make the report of the committee to the town meeting and to establish a master plan committee that would consist of 9 members with expertise as in the draft, plus transportation, with a charge equal to what the current implementation committee's charge is,
Plus,
plus updating the master plan, monitoring implementation, planning, and scoping of successive plans.
I feel a lot of pressure from this one, like I'm getting married and the pastor has just said a long passage in vows, but I'm gonna try this. Okay, ready? Motion to submit a.
Wait, no, Regina, all you
What?
have to do is
So
say,
moved.
so moved.
That's it? Motion so moved. Okay, I do. Motion so moved.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, let's do a roll call. Tabor,
I
Elaine,
Aye.
Dick,
And this is what we're doing is we're applying to this draft, right? So we don't have the final version. Not that it's gonna change much, but we're voting on the draft, is that correct?
right, and we will vote on the final version as well.
Right, good.
Okay. Megan,
Aye.
Regina,
Aye.
and myself, aye. So Nick, do you think I can send you this, which has my comments on it? And then if you want to work on it and send it to me, we can work on it together, okay?
Yeah, that works here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, let me stop this share. So that brings us back to the plan itself, folks, and 8:30. So I circulated the Traffic Mitigation Committee's report, because I don't know if everyone's actually seen it, especially newer folks. And
Thank you for doing that, because
there's-
I have not seen it.
yeah, and that's a good report, good work. And this is one of the things that, Dick, you and I and Tabor, at least the 3 of us have said there's been really great committee work, and then you don't see implementation. And that's, that's why I think there's been a lot of interest in us making sure that plans get implemented, right? So I think, Dick, I didn't get a chance to reread it before our meeting, but I did start to plug in a couple of things in the transportation section of the report. And if you want to think about, what the overarching recommendation out of the committee is going to be on that section, I can put back together the summary stuff, okay? So based on what you've sent me, so thanks for sending me the emails, and, you know, and I know Elaine, you too, I think you said you were going to be available some this month. I plugged in a few things in the housing section, just kind of some bullet points. And whether you want to incorporate any of that or not, I can add to those.
Thank you.
So I really would like for us to think about the recommendations. Where do we think like this really needs some work? I know economic development we've talked about. I know that's something Megan's interested in. We know on the transportation side, there's a lot more work that could be done. Elaine, I think on the housing side, there's frameworks have been established so things can happen, but have they actually happened, right? Is there need to be more proactive effort? So my kind of thinking on this on the housing front, right? So we've passed Milton Village zoning, mixed use, no projects in 5 years. You know, we just passed East Milton Square. We don't know how quickly projects are going to come forward under that. We did obviously MBTA communities, and the state has done ADUs. We did, you know, some targeted age restricted. But one of the things, Elaine, I was thinking that we might want to do on the housing front is check with the building department and see how many new units have actually come online in the last 10 years. So that I know that the housing production plan is going to be updated, and there's going to be a lot of data that comes out of that. But, you know, it may be that we want to highlight a few things. And we can highlight that housing production plan is going to be coming. A new update is going to be coming. All right. So if we can have that working session, like we said, on the 25th, everybody come to that meeting with a high level recommendation of what's next in the section that you're kind of responsible for, at least one. How's that? Anybody else have any other suggestions of how to get us to that point of, you know, we've been kind of just doing some summaries, what's been done, what hasn't been done, but we haven't really got to that point of even finishing those, but the recommendation. So I want us not to get to the recommendation at the last hour, you know, so we can fill in some of the background, but I do really think that we want to make sure we're on the same page about those. Okay.
Well, one thing we're going to have to do, and I think taking a look at, there was a 2011 traffic and parking study done by Howard Stein Hudson at East Milton Square, and then there was talk about having another working group for East Milton Square that was going to tie into, well, this had to be 5 or 6 years ago with, I sent it to Cheryl on a comprehensive, holistic approach to East Milton, as well as the traffic mitigation report, which I am not an early morning person, but we had to be over 20 meetings, and Jeff Mullen was the chairman of that with Mike Zulis and Mark Albert and other people. What we have to do at some point is we're going to make a recommendation. We have to find out someone who's going to take responsibility for implementing on the town side. If we don't do it, we're wasting our time. All right? There's no sense doing another study and having the same study that looks like the one we did 10, 12 years ago that is not being implemented. In my experience with the traffic mitigation report is that everyone, I don't know if they're just being kind, was saying what a great report it was. The fact of the matter was it did exactly what we were talking about. It absolutely stayed on the shelf. And I told my friend Mike Zulis that I said I would not be on a committee if it was going to be on the shelf, and it's still there. Now, every recommendation, not taking away things that Milton could do, have not been implemented. And I think it's a very quick way of discouraging people to get involved in committees. They're saying, you're going to study this thing and it's going to sit on the shelf and it's just a waste of time. So if we're going to do something like this, let's think about how this thing is going to be. Who has responsibility if and when we put something together to implement what we're doing here? Otherwise, as I said, you know, it's not our job to do economic development. This is the job of the planning board. I mean, the the planning department. That's their responsibility. You know, it's in their job description, economic development. Who was in charge of traffic in the town? I have no idea. I don't know. There's no traffic plan. There's no real responsibility for rerouting traffic. We know what it is. We paid $40,000 to give to the town to do a traffic modeling report through Beta. And and I'll find out later on this week, I don't think it's ever been used. Right? That was the whole idea. $40,000 we gave to the town, and it has to now be recalibrated since it's never been used. So I think those are the types of things that get people frustrated, you know, with the town in general. And so as we put forward things we think are important to do, we should think about who's going to have responsibility for doing them. Otherwise, let's not even put them forward.
Megan?
I'm looking forward to reading this report. Dick, I agree with you. And, you know, just, I think, you know, when recommendations get made, you know, really, you know, I see it as the development of like a succession of projects where you have to assign a business owner, a sponsor, like the ultimate party who's accountable, and the, you know, basically, you'll hear me talk about scope like constantly. But, you know, I think, and I can't speak for Milton and how Milton always does it, but I think that a lot of the times the challenge with plans like these are that there's usually a step that gets skipped where there's like real talk where the operations people and the planners really get together and say, all right, like what does success on this recommendation, like what does this outcome actually look like? And then, you know, and then a project is scoped for and executed and there's an accountable party for it.
Yeah, so I think the part that
Yeah.
that missed in the master plan, I think Megan probably was that piece of having the responsible party actually being bought in that they can do it, and what the resources are that would allow them to do it, right?
Right.
I think that's
Yep.
the part where, you know, we could.
And that's not unique to here, right?
Yeah, and it's partly because you have a volunteer committee, right, that turns it over. I mean, just like the Milton Landing, it got turned over to the select board, but then the select board appointed a committee to continue that targeted piece of work. And then, you know, it's still, I know there's lots of committees, and I know other select board members have talked about how many committees there are. And like the Climate Action Planning Committee is going to be issuing a report before too long with a lot of excellent recommendations, and where are those going to go? And one of the things that I like about you know, a town meeting kind of reporting is that the larger legislative body, you know, is involved in hearing about the work, the report, the responsible parties, and what needs to be done. Because if we think about like you know, where the larger decisions are generally tasked with being made, it's at town meeting, right? And so, you know, some of these things, you know, while the master plan touches on so many different areas, the more that these other committees are doing pieces that are developing a recommendation on a more general level to a far greater detail level, there needs to be some kind of documentation or communication that these are all actually interrelated, right? So like if you're interested in that traffic component, that you know where to find that report. Right. If it weren't for like the continuity of the three of us on this committee and you know, myself being on the planning board, there's been so many staff changeovers, there's so many committee changeovers, board changeovers that I've been at least 4 or 5 different assistant town planners or assistant directors in the planning department, DPW engineer, town engineer, DPW chair, or head. And so if there's not some way of documenting these things for the next person who steps into that seat, you know, to follow through with, it does get lost even, right? So I think even building in, you know, some way of people being the next person to fill the seat being able to pick up where the others left off is, I think would be valuable. All
Well,
right.
we just have to identify someone who has responsibility, right? When we put forth something from our committee that we think is important to do. And remember, this isn't just our idea. We're taking this from the master plan and hundreds of meetings we've had over the years for all sorts of different issues. Just think about Milton Village, how many meetings we had trying to get resident input with consultants and things like that. If you don't have the ability to implement something that we're recommending, it's all we do, we recommend to the planning board and the board, the select board. If it's not gonna get done, tell me you're not gonna do it. Tell me you don't like it. Just don't say, just pretend it's gonna go away. It's gonna solve itself. East Milton Square is not gonna solve itself in terms of traffic and parking. We know that, right? Anyone who's been through East Milton Square, you know it's not gonna solve itself. But you know what? We're no closer today than we were in 2011. And you hear it over and over and over again. You do any sort of development, Cheryl, and you know this from your experience on the planning board. Every developer that comes in, the first thing you talk about, traffic and parking. Right? That usually is the way the conversation starts. What are you gonna do about traffic? You're gonna add traffic, and what are you gonna do about parking? And everything then stalls. Right?
I have to say, in my 30 plus years as an architect, that's what I hear on every single project too.
There you do. It hasn't changed. I go back to my years when I was a city planner in Boston. We heard it all the time. Where are you gonna put the cars? Right? And so
I don't want to tell you guys what I hear all day.
yeah, well, exactly. I mean, and you hear it all. This is the stuff that people talk about. These are people that talk about in the fruit center. They'll talk about at Starbucks. They'll talk about at the ball field. These are the issues they're talking about. We can talk about a lot of things, and that's our job. But there are some things that really percolate to the top of things that are important to people in their lives. It's a quality of life in this town, and we have to deal with it. I was astounded today, and I think, Megan, you'll appreciate this. I was talking to my friend Mark Alvin, the police department. I was trying to get the number of accidents, okay, motor vehicle accidents in the town of Milton. The average is 750 automobile accidents a year in the town of Milton. I was flabbergasted. Right?
That's accident reports too.
Thank you very much, Regina. Once again, you brought up a good point. But that's what it was. 750 a year. There's been constant since I went back to 2021.
That's 2 a day, right?
You know, and this year we're on track for a record year, which should make everyone happy as of today. So, anyways, this is from the Mass DOT from their impact study. Megan, is that something? Yeah, you're familiar with
The impact portal, yeah.
Right. And I
Yeah.
was talking to,
Yeah.
they're very, very helpful today in the impact portal. But these are some of the issues people want to see some action and movement with. And I think that, you know, if we can't, when you read the report, Megan, I'd be very interested to see what you think about, basically it's Jeff and Mike Zulis's report. They did most of the work. But the long and short of it is, there are going to be some issues that, you know, that we need federal help, we need state help, we need cooperative help from other cities and towns, but there are some things we have to be able to do ourselves. We just haven't really done. And I think those are the types of issues that people are just going to say, if we want to get people involved, which I think is the whole genesis of these master plans, to get more and more people involved to find out what they think, they have to say, it isn't a waste of time. People are listening to me what I say. And hopefully they're going to act with it. And give me the bad news. Say we can't do it. There's nothing we can do.
One thing I'm going to add about what you mentioned about the traffic model, Dick, is what we were being told, and maybe this is still the way the traffic commission works, is if you get enough people on a particular street and who go to the commission and with their concerns about the traffic, they might put a one-way in without studying anything about what that does to where those cars are going. And so you end up with all of these, you can't go here from 7 to 9, you can't go there from 5 to 6 or whatever, and where do you go? And you're just moving it, to somebody else's street. The idea about the model was that you would plug in what these changes were and it would show you in advance so that rather than going out to the street. The other thing it was intended to do was if you have a project and the project was small enough that it didn't warrant a traffic study, you could still put in over time the multiple projects that might be happening, let's say in East Milton Square, and it would show you those updates so that you could plan for any mitigation that might be in the aggregate of multiple projects. Because when you're looking at a particular applicant, you can only look at what their project does. And it's one of those things that it's been a frustration. I've shared with you, Dick, that hasn't evolved the way we intended it to evolve, because even on the planning board, we thought that would be valuable. So,
And people did, and if you take a look at some of the recommendations in there, it's really, the two that jump out at me. We don't have a traffic engineer.
mhm.
We talked about getting a consultant, someone to help us share it with another town. We have no one that can run the model. So now it's outdated and has to be recalibrated, which will be another cost to someone. Otherwise, we just throw it away, I would think. Yeah.
And I don't know, that's something that I was reading through your emails, Dick, with Marina. I don't understand how we pay for something, then the engineer owns it as a work product. So, I mean, I know that like professional services, the intellectual property is owned by the design professional or whatever, but you can have a license for the owner to use it, right? So like you hire me to design a building, I own the copyright on my work product, but you have a license to build it, right? So I don't understand why that's not the same thing here with that traffic model. So that's something to dig into a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, I think there's once again, I think that we're hearing things from people. That's what I was a stickler on, trying to update the master plan, because I'm hearing from things like my son who moved to Milton 3 years ago, and I hear things from him completely different from things I hear from my friends in terms of what's important to him. And I think we have an opportunity now to get some of these people that are moving into the town who are going to weigh in on some of the issues that are important to them that should be incorporated into the master plan as a living document, as we say it is. So that's my 2 cents. End of story.
I think it was more than 2 cents, but thanks, Dick.
3 cents.
All right. Does anybody have anything else they want to add for tonight related to our plan and report? All right, then.
Carol, could you send out, or could we have sent out the links to all of the stuff that we have? I had a hard time trying to find the OneDrive
right.
tonight before the meeting.
So do you want the report in the spreadsheet, or do you want more than that, Taylor?
I guess the report in the spreadsheet. And for some reason, I go through my OneDrive and I can't seem to find it, and I know it's in there.
Right.
I made the corrections to it last meeting, but I
Right.
can't.
We can circulate that back out.
Thanks.
And then if we want to have a quick meeting on that article, what works for folks? So,
All we're gonna be doing is reviewing the new language, is that correct?
correct.
Okay.
But
We were
we
talking
can't
about
weigh
the
in
20
online.
We were talking about the
by
25th, right? No, we can't because of the open meeting laws, right?
We'd have to post this, wouldn't we?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think we want to do this. I'm assuming, Nick, that you would want it sooner than that, sooner than the 25th?
It's supposed to be this week.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if we could do a quick meeting on Wednesday or
Wouldn't we have to post it?
Thursday. We have to post it, so it'll have to be Thursday. So we could do
I could do Thursday.
I can do Thursday.
Okay,
Okay, what time are we talking about?
can we do, would people be able to do like an early morning?
I have a 7:30. It's
I can't do that early probably because we need 48 hours, so we'll have to get it posted. So what
I'd
about
have to do
like
it after 12, which is the only time I could do it on Thursday.
only
I'm
time?
wide open all afternoon.
Okay, so
I could do anytime 12 to 5:30, and I could do also set after 7 p.m.
Why don't we do noon time?
all right, noon
That's
time.
fine. Yeah.
All right.
Does that work for you, Megan or Elaine?
Works for me.
How long are we thinking? That is my only block of no meetings that day, so that's why I just want to make sure I've.
I
Like 5 minutes, right? I mean, it's just-
I'm thinking, yeah, as long as we have agreement, you know, the language, if we don't need to hash it
Okay,
out.
That's fine, yeah.
It's just really for a vote.
Mhm.
Okay, so the 7th,
So my my guess is that if we read over, like if we got a copy of the language in advance and we each had our own copy that we could show online, any edits that we wanted to make to it, we can't co-edit online,
right,
but we could edit our own copy and show any changes in language that we wanted to make. So if we can review that beforehand, make any changes on our own copy and bring that to the meeting, that would be really helpful.
okay.
I agree.
Nick, are you still with us?
Yep.
Okay, so is that something that you could help us with getting a meeting posted tomorrow? For the only agenda item would be fall town meeting article,
Yeah, that's no problem. Just on Zoom, I assume, right?
just on Zoom.
12 o'clock.
We'll take care of it.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
All right, then I think that will be it for tonight, folks.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
All right, roll call, Regina,
Aye.
Elaine,
Yes.
Megan.
Yep.
Tabor,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Thank you so much, Nick, for being with us tonight. Appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Good night.